Welcome to the Azure Bootcamp. This week, we're talking about Azure Stack. What is Azure Stack? I put this picture in here because it really starts to illustrate it's a physical thing that you're putting inside your data center. You know, you're really kind of looking at a rack of 4 use systems, each one of these being a node. And this is putting Azure inside your data center. So, after kind of doing a few of these talks and working with our customers, they're trying to wrap their hands around what is Azure Stack? It's a piece of hardware. And there's several different vendors right now that are providing that. Most notably in the United States, Dell, HP. So really what Azure Stack is, it's bringing the power of Azure into your data center, a true hybrid cloud platform. So all the features that you expect inside of Azure are available within your data center. And they're following a pattern that you've seen with Azure and cloud computing in general. They're just taking it to the next level. So we started off with kind of putting Active Directory in Azure, and I think a lot of folks are doing that now from an SSO standpoint. Kind of move that on to putting your security tooling inside of there to kind of monitor your systems or any sort of compliance stuff. Made sense to go to the cloud. Very similar to on-premise. Same with data workloads and data modernization. You have your on-premise, kind of here on the bottom. You have your on-premise data SQL Server, but you're also putting that in the cloud. What's the next evolution? That's taking all of Azure that's up in the cloud and putting that into your on-premise data center to really provide kind of a ubiquitous and unified experience, specifically in development, DevOps, and how you get your application data workloads onto your private cloud.
So what are the opportunities for Azure Stack? I guess the real question is why would Microsoft introduce a hardware device for on-premise solutions when they're pushing everyone so heavily to the cloud? Well, the one reason is that a lot of customers aren't ready to go to the cloud, and a hybrid solution with an on-premise data center that gives them all the capabilities of Azure is a great solution. But there's also 3 other capabilities as well. First, edge and disconnected solutions. There might be a network device that has to be maintained within a closed system, so that server, that Azure Stack device can't touch the outside world, and so it can be all the capabilities of Azure within a closed system and still be secure, but not touch anything on the outside. Disconnected systems. A cruise ship is a great example for this, where a ship is out at sea, has a new application deployed on the Azure Stack device, and then when it comes into port, it can upload those to the Azure portal. Cloud applications that have regulatory compliances. There's still a number of applications and industries out there that cannot put their data anywhere in the cloud, and so you can take advantage of the Azure capabilities with the Azure Stack device in your data center. And finally, the cloud application model on premises. There are a number of, believe it or not, there's still a number of mainframes out there with 30 or 40-year-old applications. Azure Stack offers you the capability to modernize those applications with the capabilities of Azure and still run that on-premise.
Key component of Azure Stack, that's Azure Paas in your data center. So having the Azure App Service running inside of just like you would in Azure, now it's inside your data center, behind a firewall in the DMZ. So using those cloud apps, web apps, those types of things. Azure Functions, the serverless functions that you can use to automate and create event-driven architectures with, now inside your data center. Azure Paas. Another key feature of Azure Stack is bringing these Azure Paas components into your data center. These include some of the key Paas components, data and application-wise, from the app services to Azure Functions for event-driven development, that service fabric that people are taking advantage of. Azure Container Service, and we have a containerization episode here that talks about how to modernize your applications with containers, but Azure Container Service, all the Docker orchestration that they've built on top of Kubernetes is available inside of your data center with Azure Stack. Very powerful, very complex to do previously to this. And then in addition to that, Cloud Foundry and other open source Paas offerings. In addition to Paas, we have all those powerful IaaS capabilities. So we're talking about network load balancers, application gateways, scaling up your VMs, or scaling down based on demand, which was kind of tough to do with some of the virtualization technologies that are in place right now. Containerization with Docker. Previously, you would have to kind of manage those VMs. Now they have VMs that are managed for you that make that a lot easier. all the storage components and also all the key vault to keep those secrets safe and not have to roll out a COTS or an off-the-shelf component for your vault information. Also an integrated delivery experience. Soup to nuts, kind of, if you remember back to that initial picture where we were showing the rack with the different nodes, those are all integrated systems, from the networking to storage and all those other types of components, all in one form factor and one package. It's fast to deploy, it's fast to scale up and down. When you want to order an Azure Stack, Dale and Microsoft engineers come out on site, help you get that implemented. You pay for what you use, which is, kind of something we're not used to inside the data center, especially with hardware, but you're paying for the resources you use. A very effective OpEx model. And support. You've got one person to call across your OS, your platform, and your hardware, which is very unique at this point in time in the kind of that ubiquitous offering. Some things to consider with Azure Stack. Figure out how you're going to deal with identity and networking. Where's your Active Directory? How are you going to extend that to your Azure Stack tenant? Think of Azure Stack kind of like an Azure tenant. How are you going to manage that? Networking is important. Yeah, a couple things. In most deployments, Azure Stack needs to be connected to the internet. Not all of them. We can talk about that more in detail later. But also, what are you going to do from a performance standpoint? Those types of things. Keep in mind that the load balancers and all those types of things are still available inside of Azure, but make sure you're giving it the right bandwidth that it needs. Your monitoring tools, I don't know if you're using Operations Manager, SolarWinds, or those types of things. How is that going to fit into your Azure Stack experience? Billing, how are you going to pay for this? What's the cost centers? How are you going to manage your governance so you know which organizational units are using what services? And your tools and IDE. If you're using Azure now, you're using VSTS now, this should be seamless, but if you're using other types of technologies, look at how you want to use Azure Stack to integrate that into your development ecosystem. How do you get started? Here's what we do and you can do internally as well. If you want to start working with Azure Stack, you can really do it these first two steps here with literally very minimal upfront investment. So kind of do an alignment workshop. What are you going to use Azure for inside of your data center? Are you going to deploy, applications using Paas? Are you going to take advantage of containers? Figure out how you want to use Azure Stack. Then kind of do a single node POC. This is free as long as you have the hardware to support it. You can download the Azure Stack SDK and create for development and testing purposes an Azure Stack proof of concept, single node on your own hardware. This gives you the full power of Azure Stack there. So figure out how that's going to work. Once that happens and you figure out that POC is proved out and what you want to do, then it's a matter of planning. Take it in an agile fashion, starting with 1 or 2 nodes and moving from there. After that, you start to kind of roll out and roadmap like any other project or product development, kind of iteratively figure out how you're going to leverage Azure Stack. Order a 4-node rack, start working with that and expand nodes as it makes sense.